What is the most impactful thing that you can do to totally redefine the way you play your favorite ludicrous space game? Pause the video, handsome viewer. It's not pay to win flight blades. Sadly, I finished working on this video before the paywall controversy started and CIG began peddling performance enhancing ship buffs on their shady pledge store, which honestly should be illegal. So stick to legal and socially acceptable pay to win instead. Premium grade peripherals and hardware like the flight sticks that appear in this video, which I hope you'll enjoy regardless of how CIG continues to sabotage and undermine our ludicrous space game's integrity. Resume the video! You're probably familiar with HOCAM, hands-on keyboard and mouse, which is great, but have you heard about HOMAM, hands-on mouse and mouse? Or do you even HOCAC, bro? This doesn't make any sense. Well, it's none of those. Today we're talking about HOSAS, hands-on stick and stick. That's right. That's right, nothing comes close to the infinite beauty and elegance of dual-wielding two very possibly over-engineered flight sticks in each of your hands as you adventure your way through space epically. Full disclosure, VIRPIL, manufacturers of premium-grade flight simulation hardware, sent me these sticks. I did not pay for them, therefore I like to imagine that someone over at VIRPIL has an annoying family member or something, or a friend, that has as equally poor taste in online entertainment as you do, who showed them my content and then they thought to themselves, wow, this voidy vids guy needs all the help he can get. And a few months later, a pair of dual Constellation Alpha Primes showed up on my doorstep. And full disclosure again, it might shock you to learn that I'm not a professional YouTube hardware reviewer guy by any stretch of the imagination. Seriously, what the f am I doing? This is my first foray into making video about a piece or pieces of hardware, and the most experience I've had historically with flight sticks before these was with a random joystick from the 90s that I played some Hellbender on my dad's computer. Who knows what that was, like a Pentium, I don't know. And more recently with a single Thrustmaster 16000M that a friend lent me quite some time ago. So let's just say that my exposure to hardware of this caliber is limited. But that's kind of what drives this whole video. Look at it as an enthusiast, non-expert overview of the HOSAS input method as a whole, my opinions on the VIRPIL Constellation Alpha Prime flight sticks themselves, what the setup and configuration process has been like, and most importantly, what's involved in the adaptation process to become competent with a new control paradigm to play your favorite space game with. It can be a fairly daunting undertaking, and I don't think everyone who takes the plunge may realize exactly what they're signing themselves up for. So, from setup to competency, this is what you're getting yourself into by adopting premium grade HOSAS, hands-on stick and stick, into your life. But first, for the uninitiated, why? Why do players invest into sticks like this in the first place, and are they any better than the PC gaming standard of the classic keyboard and mouse? First of all, don't just assume that dual sticks are better. In the competitive PvP scene of Star Citizen, some of the best pilots are mouse and keyboard. Some are dual stick and some are probably stick and mouse. Each have their pros, each have their cons. But it's not all about pro elite PvP sweatlord competitiveness either. Immersion is also a factor to consider, and using a flight stick to control your ship just kind of never gets old with something as immersive as Star Citizen. But the real benefit of going for dual sticks is simple. You gain 6 degrees of analog input freedom in both hands. By analog, I mean you have a granular input control over things like thrust, pitch, yaw, rolls, and strafes, instead of the binary input of a keyboard when you're either at 0 thrust or maximum thrust for a given input. This granularity in motion allows for more organic control over your favorite spaceship and translates to making certain important maneuvers into a far more natural exercise and not a keyboarding contortionist dilemma. And so with all of that out of the way, let's begin. Okay, so we've attached that to that. Now we're going to attach that to another base like this one. So what exactly does this video's HOSAS setup consist of? Well, no less than 2 Constellation Alpha Prime flight sticks, left and right, with 2 Warbird D bases. Important to note that these are sold separately, as well as 2 V4 S desk mounts with, again sold separately, adapters for the Warbird D bases. And finally, a Z extension, which I've used to alter the orientation of the left flight stick to become more horizontal, so it acts closer to something like a motorbike handle than a standard vertical flight stick, but more on that later. Now onto what I would consider to be the most intimidating part. Not that physical assemblage is difficult, but rather that this is the first step in a fairly long journey of tweaking, changing, configuring, button mapping and button remapping to eventually get comfortable with a brand new control paradigm that your brain has yet to even comprehend, and the only way forward is through trial and error and practice. Just make sure that before you start you have an 8mm spanner, a set of Allen keys and a pair of pliers. Take some time and seriously do a bit of planning. If you're going mountless, make sure that you have ample room on your desk, and if you're opting for mounts like I have here, ensure that the mounts themselves will clear your desk's thickness. For the VIRPIL V4S mounts, they have a maximum clearance of about 6.5 centimeters. This means that you will need to consider either a different desk or a different style of mount if your desk is thicker than that. Another important consideration is how much space you have behind you after the mounts are in place, as the distance from the edge of your desk to the edge of the mounted, fully installed sticks has just increased by about 30 centimeters, and you'll need to sit a bit further back than what you're used to compensate for that distance, potentially even making a monitor arm necessary if you end up too far away from your main gaming monitor. And finally, one last important consideration. If your epic gamer chair has armrests, they could very well get in the way of your premium HOSAS usage. Luckily, the chair I have boasts retractable armrests, so this hasn't been a huge problem, but it could be for you depending on the specifics of your future setup. From the size of the room you're in, to the type of desk you have, to how your monitors are laid out, to what kind of chair you have. Like I said, it can be daunting and there's a lot to consider. By far the most awesome thing about the mounts themselves are their quick release clamps. These make moving them, altering their position, or quickly storing them away for later use if you need to turn your epic gaming simulation setup back into an office for a while, an absolute breeze. In the years before I had access to any form of flight stick for Star Citizen, I had always thought that having a throttle and stick, or HOTAS, made the most sense, at least from an immersion perspective. But as the years went by and I came to understand more about the different input methods players had started to adopt over the years, and what 6 degrees of freedom truly meant, dual sticks started to make more and more sense. However, I always wondered what each stick would control. I disliked the idea of twisting the axis on a stick in my left hand to control up and down strafe. That just didn't really make sense to me. So to that end, I could not be happier with the Z extension that VIRPIL also provided in this bundle, as this best emulates the idea of a throttle but retains the 6 degrees of freedom of control that is so crucial to space games, especially Star Citizen. From what I understand about the current landscape of flight sim hardware companies, VIRPIL have made a name for themselves by using incredibly high quality and durable materials. The mounts are incredibly solid. The sticks themselves feel like they would break me before I could break them. But for handsome viewers simply watching a YouTube video about these sticks at home, it must be hard to take my or any other channel's word for it, especially since I've only had these sticks for a few weeks. What I can tell you though is, after getting brutalized by a Corsair while in my Cutlass Blue live on stream and complaining about how that was an unfair matchup and I never stood a chance, known terrifying PvP dogfighting pirate master extraordinaire Tumblerino took me to school in Arena Commander and taught me some incredibly important lessons. He mentioned during my time practicing with the sticks against him that he has been thoroughly abusing his pair of VIRPIL Alphas for a solid 3 years and has not come remotely close to even needing to replace any of the cams or springs within the bases. And that's probably about as good as it can get in terms of a testimony for the Constellation Alpha Primes as possible.
See, you're keeping distance closer. Push forward. Stop.
I'm pushing forward. I'm pushing
boost
so
forward.
forward.
Boost forward.
Boosting forward.
Exactly. There you go. See, okay. So see that problem?
Here's some footage of me flying with the dual Alpha Primes for the first time as we talk about the all-important adaptation process. Early Voidude was young and naive. I figured it would be a few sessions in Arena Commander, changing some bindings, taking a few hours to get used to the sticks, build a bit of muscle memory, and wham bam, the work would be done. I would have conquered the brand new world of analog 6 degrees of freedom per hand and turned it into my oyster. I would never even have to think about it. It was a done deal. We had become a HOSAS user now. End of story. But it's become far more complicated than that. You see, getting used to the sticks to be able to fly moderately well was easier than I thought, but the complicated part is that it's now time to get used to all of the new bindings. It was recommended to me often and loudly to check out Buzzkiller's bindings to get started. He's been around doing God's work in the Star Citizen community for ages and supports a few brands of flight sticks with his highly detailed profile mappings that come complete with diagrams to easily reference and learn the controls. However, ultimately my smooth brain was unable to adapt to his bindings, and I ended up practically remapping every button I used in Star Citizen one at a time to finally get comfortable and truly competent. I don't think I'm alone in this. Many people just can't adapt to something that's been pre-configured by someone else. However, Buzzkiller's guides provided one absolutely crucial and all-important aspect of HOSAS enablement: Joy to Key, a third-party application to allow for keyboard bindings straight to your stick buttons that ultimately allows for modifiers to be pressed to allow for even more actions. This is crucial. If you're like me and attempting to adopt new flight sticks into your life, you might be as overwhelmed as I was, but starting with Buzzkiller's profiles and working your way to something more custom for you is probably the best way to get started. It just takes a bit of time, a bit of trial, and a bit of error. And once I was comfortable with my bindings, something terrible happened. It's only natural to want to practice with the sticks more and more. They're a brand new shiny investment that is constantly sitting on your desk, taunting you to grasp them and use them thoroughly. And a huge part of that is using them in ship combat. And now that ship combat has become an addiction stronger than even that of the holiest of grade A Jumptonian maze. The VIRPIL Constellation Alpha Primes have acted as a gateway to start dedicating unreasonable amounts of time to the unceremonious art of getting good. I mean, it makes sense, right? No one goes through all of the trouble of installing and configuring a brand new control input paradigm with the intention of remaining perfectly mediocre, right? It's also a great time to leave behind any previous bad habits you might have developed with an older control scheme and learn to become a better combat pilot with a fresh slate. When my augmates and handsome viewers from streams caught wind of my intentions, I was immediately assaulted with suggestions. Go do these drills, check out these profiles, watch this YouTube video, practice that maneuver, tweak this curve. I was bombarded with information and had no idea where to start. So if you're like me and easily confused, contradictingly heed this advice nugget from known HOSAS stick sage, it's not fair. Simply play the game, fly a ship around and do your thing. Take the time to establish your own baseline, don't configure curves, don't do any advanced tweaking or changes beyond the initial setup. Just play the game, adapt slowly from there. It's a process, a long one, and the longer you stick with it, the more rewarding it becomes over time, and the more confidently you can make the more advanced tweaks to truly dial into your own preferences. Diving into the PvP scene of Star Citizen might seem like a daunting thing to do, but I would be doing anyone watching this video a huge disservice if I didn't mention just how incredibly positive my experience interacting with random sweatlords in Arena Commander has been. These are guys who have dedicated hundreds, if not thousands of hours perfecting the fine art of deleting you out of existence as quickly and efficiently as possible. But the funny thing is that on average, these players are probably the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure to speaking to online. Huge shout out to Shibaichi, who I randomly encountered in an AC Free Fire lobby, and after a thorough session of getting absolutely dumpstered, he was eager to chat about what I could do to improve and get dumpstered ever so slightly less often. The VIRPIL Constellation Alpha Primes have been an absolute joy to use. Once you get past the setup and configuration phases that will require some dedication to get through, they have become the singular, or rather the dual, greatest upgrades you can make to enhance your experience in Star Citizen and any other Space Sim and non-Space Sim titles that you may be interested in for both casual immersion as well as hardcore competitive edginess. Are they for everyone? Not at all. This is serious enthusiast level premium grade hardware, and it's reflected in the price and build quality. However, that quality makes an incredibly strong statement, which is one of intense durability. If you buy sticks like these from VIRPIL, you buy them once, and they'll probably last you for the rest of your life. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you channel patrons and channel members for all your support. Thinking of pledging to this ludicrous space game? Then use the referral code on screen now from one of the illustrious patrons and channel members for a free 5,000 starting credits. Support from handsome viewers like you keeps this channel going, so if you want to help out beyond a like and a subscribe, consider becoming a patron or use the join button below, and follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/voiddude or right here on YouTube for live streams. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you around the verse. Cheers. We're not recording, and we can just be ourselves, right? I don't know how to do this. I don't know if it should be... Stop it. I don't know if it should be high or low. Like I've got to readjust it depending on what I actually like. So we'll go there and see if we like it or not. If we don't like it, we'll just change it, I guess.
Like your socks, Mark.
My name's not Mark, it's Voidy.
Sorry, like your socks, Woody.
Please don't call me that ever again.
Oh.
You're not a handsome viewer. Oh, these are different sizes. Why are they different sizes?
Ask the manual you're not looking at.
Yeah, but there's not enough bolts. Do I use the big ones or the small ones? I've made such a mess of it all. Do you know what? It's fine.